Hi classmates, Dr. Lou here doing a success tips video for assignment 3, similar to our previous assignments. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the assignment itself and the rubric. I'll give you a template that you can use to complete the assignment, and then lastly I'll go through an example student paper. There's also a tips document. I'm not going to go through this in the webinar, but I will post it in the My Professor area. My comments should address a lot of the commentary in that tips document as I go through this. But here we have our assignment. Again, this assignment your mission, if you choose to accept it, is you play the role of an activist shareholder, and you are going before the board of directors, and you have a strong opinion. You see something happening within Salesforce.com's financials, and you want them to know about it. And so your goal is to raise your concern, show them where you see the concerns within the financial ratios, and give a recommendation for what you are urging them to do, basically. And so if I scroll down, there's really 3 key parts to this letter. The first is that you introduce yourself to the board and say, hey, look, I've held this investment for 5 years, and when I originally bought the investment, I had it positioned as a value investment, say, or a growth investment, and here's why. But now I see the tides are turning, or something is happening, and I see it in the product specific metrics and the financial ratios. And so then you're going to pull up some ratios, and you're going to talk about the trends that you're seeing or how those ratios compare to the competition like Oracle or SAP. And then you're going to come up with some recommendations as to how they can curb the tide of those ratios, or perhaps be opportunistic and take advantage of a positive ratio that you may see as well by shifting capital and resources into that product and perhaps divesting other products. And then lastly, you'll conclude with just wrapping it all up with an inspirational and bold explanation of your opinion about the company. And again, reaffirm whether you believe it's a good moat company, a great moat company, or whether it's time to get out of that particular investment. If I scroll down to the rubric pretty much hits those 3 key areas. Here was your initial investment recommendation down in number 4, right, as a value or a growth investment. The second section was the financial ratios and key metrics. And then the third is the linkage of those metrics to your product strategy and your recommendation. You will note that the financial ratio in the analysis section is 40%. So it is the most heavily weighted section within the letter. And then the last rubric section, again, is the standard writing style and organization of your assignment. One other thing to note here, there are 5 metrics that you'll need to make comments on in order to get that honors grade. So again, 4 to get the high pass, 5 to get that honors grade. You will notice that in the template that I'm going to pull up here shortly, I've only got 4 ratios in there. So you will want to make note of that. But if I pull up assignment 3, the template, here we have a title page. And again, this will be available for you in the My Professor area. Here's just an instructions tab that gives you some insights of things to think about. You'll delete this page before you submit it. But you'll see the fundamentalist approach and some of the frameworks that we talked about earlier in the class. Here we have our profitability tree, right? Leadership's hired to either increase revenues, lower costs, or mitigate risks and manage risks. And then this tree spawns out into other branches. And those branches are effectively going to be representing the ratios that you're going to be talking about within this letter. And then here we have our framework that basically aligns corporate strategy to the financial outcomes and the ratios and the initiatives that get us there. And so again, good, really important and key frameworks you can use to think about this assignment. And then here we get into the actual letter. And again, you can write in free form like a letter, like the example that I'll show you shortly, or you can actually just fill in this this assignment or this template. But if I go through here, the first section again is the recap of why did you buy the stock in the first place, right? So in this case, hey, I might have bought this because it was a growth investment, and so my rationale for that was, hey, I was buying because of the management quality. I knew there was a tremendous amount of industry leadership within this management team. And I also knew that there was a highly differentiated portfolio of products within the Salesforce offerings. And so that's really why I made this growth investment. So again, this came from our checklist, our growth investing and our value investing checklist. And you can put those in there and write some additional commentary in here to just qualify that. So that's the first section, pretty straightforward. And again, you may not believe it was a growth investment. You could make an argument that it's a value investment. And so that's fine, right? You just want to put some supporting commentary and some language that basically supports that opinion. The second section is where we get into the meat and potatoes, where again, we get into the financial ratios, right? So here's where you want to talk about 4 or 5 ratios, right? Again, I've only got 4 ratios in this template, but you want to talk about 5 if you want to get that honors grade. But here you comment about a ratio. Again, I put 3 examples down here. You don't have to talk about these. You can talk about other ones. In my week 8 video, I pulled an extract on Salesforce.com from Morningstar, and I highlighted a few metrics. So you may choose to leverage that if you like. But here's where you would put some analysis down in here, and you would comment on the trend that you're seeing in one of these ratios, or how does it compare again to the competition, and why that's a concern for you. And then, how would you improve it? Would you focus on revenue? Would you focus on cost? Would you focus on mitigating risk in order to drive value? And then, other notes or recommendations that pertain to that particular analysis. Then you have another section to that, which is getting to, okay, now how do I align my initiatives or my products or my services to those ratios, and then come up with recommendations for that. So your recommendation, again, might be to divest one of the products of Salesforce.com, or reallocate resources to its crown jewel there. And then our last section, as I scroll down, is the closing statement. So here's where you reaffirm your current belief now of how Salesforce may have changed from growth, great mode company, to one that's still a great mode company, or maybe a good mode company, or perhaps you're arguing to divest and you want out of this particular investment. And so here this is your closing statement, where you're going to wrap it all up and really be inspirational and bold about your opinion. I had a professor once tell me, as leaders and managers, doing nothing is not an option, right? You want to be bold. You want to have an opinion. We've taught you in this class how to do financial analysis so that you do have an opinion, and you don't go on with the herd. You don't go on with what other investors are doing, but you have your own unique opinion upon investments. So that's a template that should be valuable for you to make use of. The last document that I'm going to pull up here is an example paper. It does not follow this template, but you'll get the gist of it. Here's a paper. I've got the title page here up front. The first section, again, summarizes that this particular student believed and originally invested in Salesforce because they found it was a growth investment. And again, similar to the example that I put in the template before, they did that because of the organizational leadership and the differentiated portfolio, right? Those are 2 key concepts we covered in the class so far. It can be found in the growth and the value checklist that we have available on our course document site. And then here they just commented on that Salesforce, maintained a wide moat rating, but now, right, uncertainty exists. So here the student is transitioning into where their argument is going to be as to what they want the board of directors to focus on from a change perspective. They really make a compelling argument here, where they're saying, hey, I'm seeing in the market now a change in the life cycle, and I'm seeing a lot more competition now come into this space now that these SaaS offerings are out there in the market. And here's where they really drop the bomb, right? They're like, hey, look, Salesforce has been unable to show a profit, but yet they've had an average growth rate of 25% year over year. So they're really calling into question past investments and acquisitions that were made, and whether they're really getting value out of that. And they believe that that's really put a lot of debt burden on them and poor financial health. So it's likely that this student is going to recommend a divestiture recommendation as we get later on into the paper. Then we get into section 2, which is the key performance indicator. They put a nice graph in here. again, I recommend that you try to sprinkle in some graphs and charts. And here we have the 5 ratios. So this student focused on a 5-year average net income trends, EPS, return on equity, again, making some comments, talking about the trend, talking about what they're actually seeing within this particular metric. Here they used ROIC, so return on invested capital, and then current ratio. So they talked about where the ratio was and how something less than greater than 1 is considered unhealthy. And then here's our wrapping it up, right? Our conclusion section. Or I'm sorry, this is where they link the products and services strategies back to the ratios. So here they're talking about really profitable product lines, and so they want to focus here since it's 85% of the portfolio. But bam, this Commerce Cloud, it's not really working out. So I'm really recommending that you divest that, and that should hopefully give some lift to some of those ratios that we talked about earlier. And then finally, we have our closing statement. So this student is saying, hey, Salesforce is still a great company. It's a good moat company, but I really urge you to make some changes. And those changes are aggressive internal cost cutting, divesting Commerce Cloud, reductions of non-critical acquisitions, and so forth. So again, hopefully this is helpful. Get some good templates and some good examples out there to make you successful. I hope you enjoyed this and find this useful. Again, we will not do a live teleconference this week, but if you have any questions at all, please do not hesitate to shoot me an email, text me, call me. I'm here to serve you and to help you. So have fun with this assignment. I know you're going to do a great job like you have the other assignments. Let's make finance fun and have a great week, everybody.